Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to the Eugene Cannabis TV show, episode 614. You got your host DanK here to got some interesting stories to tell you about, some announcements. The biggest one is this is actually happening tomorrow as we're filming this, so you're going to miss it. But I want to be sure and tell you that the next one, that's the Cannabis Science Pub, will be next. It's always this last Tuesday of each month, and next month that'll be June 28th. So put that on your calendars. But the one tomorrow is the subject is growing sustainability, and that's put on by OG Analytical and Oregon's Constant Gardener. Excellent people, great people. So keep that in mind. And that's going to be at the Cozmic, which is 8th and Charlton, and that's May 31st. Well, the one's tomorrow, May 31st, but it's already happened by the time you're seeing this. So next month is June 28th. And then we got the Oregon Hemp Convention in Portland, which is coming up. That's on July 11th and 12th. And that's one day is a $15 admission, 2 days is $20 admission, and that's the Oregon Convention, OregonHempConvention.com. So that's good people out there doing that. And then in Roseburg on June 18th, we have the Umpqua Hempfest. See, that's at Oakland. And the gates open high noon on June 18th. And they have after-hours camping, which is another $20. So anyway, and then Alaska, this is the one that got me. We mentioned this a few shows ago. June 17th, 18th, and 19th, the 3-day Hemp Fest in Alaska. It's at Kinney Lake. And you might ask, where is Kinney Lake? Well, it's 7.5 miles. Well, anyway, it's out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So that's an interesting idea, Hempfest in Alaska. So speaking of Hempfest, this is a smooth transition. This story was in the Register Guard on May 5th, titled "Hempfest Organizer Takes City of Eugene to Court for Denying Park Permit." The subtitle is "Annual Event at Maury Jacobs Park is Canceled Unless the judge rules otherwise." And of course, we know what we're talking about is the organizer of the annual Emerald Empire Hempfest in Eugene is taking the city to court to challenge a decision denying him permission to hold the event again this summer in a public park. Dan Kuzer, the Pro Cannabis Festival's executive director, on Tuesday filed a petition in Lane County Circuit Court that asks a judge to review the denial and allow the event to go on as scheduled in mid-July at Maury Jacobs Park. According to documents submitted along with the petition for review, city public works officials told Kuzer last year that they expected his permit for the 2016 festival would be denied because a park supervisor had smelled the odor of marijuana emanating from a vendor's tent last July 17th, the first day of the 2015 event. Immediately after being notified during the festival of the park's supervisor's discovery, Kuzer raised the tent's flaps to reveal its interior, and no more smoking was observed in the tent, court documents say. The city in January denied Kuzer's permit for this year's event, and that decision was upheld in March by City Hearings Officer Gary Darnell. He ruled that several conditions of the permit issued to Dan Kuzer last year had been violated, including one that requires all applicable laws to be followed during the festival. Private marijuana use in Oregon became legal for adults 21 and older last July 1st, but it remains illegal to use pot in public. Danielle also wrote in his final order that he denied Kuzer's appeal because the event organizer's request for a hearing did not adequately explain why he disagreed with the original denial. Brian Michaels, a Eugene attorney representing Kuzer, said Wednesday that he believes the city is singling out the event for content-driven reasons and that the permit denial is unconstitutional. He asserted that the crime of smoking marijuana occurs at a range of public events, including parades and football games. This is directed at Hempfest, Michael said. I think members of city government are tired of having marijuana on their property. Why they choose to come down on this the first year that marijuana is legal, I don't know. A city spokesman could not be immediately reached for comment. Darnell wrote in his final order that he disagreed with Coozer's inference that the city is discriminating against him because of the nature of his event. The city and the Hempfest have a long history of cooperation, and this was the last time that an application for the event has been denied by the city, Darnell wrote. Also, I disagree with Coozer's assertion that the city is attempting to control the secondary effects of the event by denying his application. The application was denied because of failure to comply with the terms of his permit. The court filing says the city has granted Coozer's permits for the event since 2003. According to the event's webpage, the purpose of the festival is to unite our citizens in calling for sweeping reforms in America's laws against cannabis and hemp. And then there were some comments that came in on that, and so these were kind of interesting. Someone wrote in, these festivals have no business operating on public land, and they need to be operated on private commercial property. Condi sent the example, referring to Bill Condi that had the Hemp Fest up in Harrisburg along the freeway. Another person wrote in, I think it's been made much more difficult in general for these alternative-leaning festivals to happen. Ironic, as the state laws relax towards the use of marijuana, the government bureaucracies have done more to shut down its wider acceptance. Another person wrote, these festivals, in quotes, have no business operating on public land and need to be operated on commercial private property, which is repeated in the earlier conversation or statement from somebody else, and then wrote, would that also include the annual beer festival that is held in the park? And just a note there, if he's talking about Maury Jacobs Park, now there's no beer festival in Maury Jacobs Park. I'm 99% sure of that because that's one of those parks that's alcohol-free. But anyway, see, another person wrote in, I've ridden my bike through the park when the Hemp Fest is there several times in the past couple of years. Rampant smoking and marijuana smell, music with obscenities, and stoned people blocking the bike path and wondering why I went by. Good riddance. Another person wrote in, sounds more like the zombie apocalypse. And then, let's see, oh yes, and then somebody else wrote in, I'm not generally a fan, I'm not generally a fan of festivals in Maury Jacobs Park. It should be in Alton Baker, which has the ability to handle the oodles of cars that come with these things. That said, the only festival that has been well behaved in this park has been the Hempfest. At the request of neighbors, they changed over to acoustic music and brought down the volume on the energetic folks who take to the stage with political speeches. They station people on the streets to deal with folks who don't know where to go to park, so they don't park on our driveways. And they even help deal with the problem people who tend to gather near the river independent of any festival. To put the lie to the city's hearings statement of cooperation, the city has already forced the Hempfest to move twice, once from Alton Baker and once from Washington Jefferson. Every new demand the city has put up on these folks has been met, from cleaning the park to policing everyone who shows up. Imperial staff is a problem. And then finally I wrote in, we've been experiencing what we call subtle hostility for the past 5 to 6 years from the staff at the Eugene City Parks Department. When we started in 2003, the Parks Department was very helpful and great to work with. It seems personnel changes in the Park Department over the years has brought us to this point. We've been trying to get back to the park we used at our first event, Alton Baker Park. The department's convoluted and prejudiced application process has been a problem. We did have complaints from some Maury Jacobs Park neighbors last year. They wanted us to turn the music up. They complained that they couldn't hear the music at their houses. The 2016 Emerald Empire Hempfest will happen. It's just a matter of where. By the way, our site has been hijacked and we will be starting a new one soon. So that's it. And yes, we do have a new website, and it's Hempfest, eehempfest.com. And please go to that one, and we'll keep track of what's going on, and we'll keep you up to date. And speaking of parks, and this is interesting, the Eugene Parks Department, this is in the Register Guard on May 28th, titled, Eugene's Parks Go Smoke-Free on June 1st, but city will be soft on enforcement for 3 months. See, this is a good, actually I'm looking at this as a good thing, because if we did have the Hempfest in the park, it'll make enforcement of the no marijuana laws easier to enforce, because you can't smoke anything. So there's no smoking or vaping of anything. So anyway, I think it would make it a little easier for us. But anyway, this article is written by Christian Hill. And the last one, by the way, is written by Jack Moran. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, but he's written some stories before about the Hempfest, and a very fair reporter. But anyway, Christian Hill in Register Guard on May 28th, and he wrote, Eugene city-owned parks and natural areas will go smoke-free starting Wednesday, but violators will receive the white glove treatment for the first 3 months of the smoking ban. June 1st kicks off the 3-month education period. That's before officials begin enforcing the smoking ban with citations. The education effort will include new park signs, flyers, and a web page. The 2 park ambassadors, temporary employees who help visitors, will spread the word during the summer. Eugene joins other cities in Lane County that have snuffed out tobacco use at their parks. The cities of Cottage Grove and Veneta, and the Lamb Lane Park and Recreational District, which serves Springfield, imposed smoking bans last year. A smoking ban at all state-owned parks in Oregon took effect in January 2015. The ban will include the park blocks in downtown. The proposed smoking ban that the city put out for public comment in February had exempted the square. Councilor Greg Evans said that at the time that city officials didn't want to ban smoking at the park blocks, a popular hangout for smokers, ahead of any ongoing discussion of a possible broad downtown outdoor smoking ban, which would include establishing areas for smokers. Mayor Katie Piercy and many residents disagreed, saying the pot smoking ban would cover the park blocks, which technically are city parks. Public Works Director Kurt Corey signed off on the final rules last month. Public comment prompted citizens to think better of other rules they proposed initially for city parks. The proposed ban on flying drones and model aircraft at city parks because of private and safety concerns, gone for the time being. Residents noted, among numerous arguments, the regulation of airspace is the job of the Federal Aviation Administration and not the city. that there can be no exception of privacy and expectation of privacy in public places, and that there have been no accidents tied to the use of drones in city parks. City staff members plan to meet with user groups to discuss this issue. So anyway, that's interesting. So what this is telling me is, hey, you got a drone or model airplane, hey, go out there in the parks. You can fly for now. It's legal, I guess, so go for it. Sounds good to me. So anyway, as far as the Hempfest, we're still waiting for our court date for our hearing. So hopefully we can still find some justice. We're running out of time, but we're still trying. So that's the Emerald Empire Hempfest, keeping it free since 2003, and that's eehempfest eehempfest.com. Anyway, that's it. So we're going to be in here in the second half of episode 614. You got DanK here.
Well, I smoked some marijuana with some people I like, just like everybody does from the East Coast to the West. I didn't even notice the cop on the bike, didn't know I was about to be the 20 millionth marijuana arrest. Should have fought for marijuana law reform, should have gone to the web and typed in norm. Norm to the L.org. Norm will drop the A.org, baby. National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
Welcome back to the second half of show number 614 of the Eugene Cannabis TV show. You got DanK here, and we're just going through some stories, and a couple of Oregon stories on the first half of the show, and this one here is from Vermont, which is the other on the right coast. Of course, see, we're on the left coast, that's the right coast. But anyway, I found this on my ChamplainValley.com website, written by Alexandra Leslie, 4/21/2016, titled Vermont House Passes Bill Allowing Police to Conduct Saliva Drug Testing. The subtitle, The Senate is set to address the bill next. Just Wednesday, the Vermont House gave final approval to a bill that would allow law enforcement to use a saliva test to determine if a driver is impaired. The bill specifically looks at testing for a combination of both alcohol and marijuana plus other drugs. Lieutenant John Flanagan serves as the vice chair on Vermont's Highway Safety Allowance. Flanagan says saliva testing would help to find impaired drivers on the road. It's accurate, it's reliable, there's scientific data to support that. And we think it's time that we've had some more tools to do our job. It's been used in other parts of the United States. It's been used in Europe and Australia for over a decade, said Flanagan. State police say there are 2 ways to do saliva testing, including using a roadside screener and collecting an evidentiary sample that is sent to a laboratory. It's much less invasive rather than drawing blood, said Flanagan. In addition to allowing police to conduct saliva testing to look for signs of impairment, the bill would also set new standards for blood alcohol content. It has a 500 limit, 0.05 limit with a combination of a 1.5 nanograms delta-9 TC, the active metabolite in marijuana, said Flanagan. The test is not limited to find marijuana. Testing would also show the presence of opiates, cocaine, and methadone. Flanagan says passing the bill would be important for Vermont's highway safety. We want this to be a deterrent for those who choose to drive while consuming alcohol, those that choose to drive consuming both illicit and illicit drugs that's impairing their ability to drive, said Flanagan. The next step is for the bill to be addressed in the Senate. So anyway, there's a lot of talk about different tests for marijuana. I've done several stories in the past, so it remains to be seen. For one thing, as far as I am understand, and actually there hasn't been a limit set for marijuana impairment. Colorado and maybe Washington has a 0.5, I think it's 0.5 nanograms limit. But even then, as far as I understand, there's no anything way to prove that is the intoxication limit. So it's a strange thing. So we don't know where we're going to go. And then this is back in March, but it's always good to look back and see what they were talking about then and see what they're doing now. This was in the Oregonian by Noel Crombie, March 2nd, 2015, titled OLCC asks for more power over marijuana regulation. The Oregon Liquor Control Commission this week plans to submit to the Oregon Legislature dozens of policy recommendations and technical fixes to the new marijuana law, as well as ideas the agency has collected on a statewide listening tour. And some of the things that they talk about wanting to do is grant the OLCC the authority to require marijuana retailers to use equipment to verify customers' ages. Only 21 and older may legally purchase and possess marijuana under the new law. OLCC officials said the law implies retailers only have to check consumer identification if there's a question about age. Commissioner said that they would like the ability to mandate checking ID if it deems possible. Another thing they wanted was grant the OLCC authority to impose civil penalties on marijuana growers, processors, and retailers who are out of compliance. Allow the OLCC to confiscate or seize, quote, limited amounts of marijuana, unquote. Then the agency will ask the legislature for provision that would protect state employees from criminal prosecution for possessing limited amounts of marijuana during the course of doing their jobs. Give the OLCC power to prohibit firearms at licensed marijuana operations. Grant the OLCC authority to issue subpoenas and compel production of documents and testimony which the agency described as normal regulatory tools necessary for the OLCC to regulate marijuana as it does alcohol. Let's see, OLCC asked lawmakers to establish a third-party lab certification process given the deficiencies of labs testing for marijuana potency, mold, mildew, and pesticides. They asked the legislature to allow medical marijuana growers to sell their seeds and clones to licensed retail producers. They're doing that. Currently, the state's marijuana law creates licenses for marijuana processors. The OLCC wants authority to create 3 subcategories within the processor license. Since this category is inclusive of diverse processing activities, some of which are increasingly complex and pose additional regulatory challenges. The proposed categories apply to packaging, concentrates, and manufactured products. The agency will ask lawmakers to give the ability to have immediate emergency access to a license holder's books and records. The OLCC asked lawmakers to give it authority to use a seed-to-sale tracking system for all license types. The agency wants employees of a marijuana license holder, such as retailers, to hold a server's permit as a condition of employment. The permit is similar to an issue to people who serve alcohol. Commissioners also recommended lawmakers prohibit marijuana use by passengers in a car. The law currently prohibits drivers from consuming cannabis. The agency also passed along other observations and comments it collected on its recent series of listening tour stops around the state. The Commission did not take a position on these issues, which include a residency requirement for people interested in getting into the industry, which they don't have they dropped that, so now out-of-state people can get into it. It's been very controversial. Prohibiting license holders to locate more than 1,000 feet from a school, adding marijuana crimes to racketeering statute, and consider the possibility of licensing marijuana bars or lounges. Also on the list of ideas collected from the public, changing the name of the commission to reflect that marijuana regulation is part of its job. So anyway, that's and believe me, when the Oregon Legislature goes into session next year, it's going to be next time. I mean, it's going to be wild, and look out. The Oregon Legislature is not marijuana friendly and never has been marijuana friendly. In fact, it's the opposite. So it's a real circus every time they go into session. And this one is a letter to the editor that was published on April 20th, and that was a pretty good letter, so I wanted to bring it on the show. And this is, he is actually titled, got published on 4/20, the subtitle, Some Sanity from Counselor on Pot Issue. To the editor. Thankfully, City Councilor Denise Bacon voiced a bit of disgust at a recent City Council discussion about, and by the way, I didn't get the town this was from, and I apologize for that. It's not Eugene, but I've forgotten where it came from or what town they're talking about, but this is the kind of thing that's going on all over anyway. A bit of disgust at a recent City Council discussion about taxing sick people in our community who use medical marijuana to treat illnesses. I too find it heartless to place the burden of taxes on medicine. These people need our help, not extra expenses. Health issues are the leading cause of bankruptcy in our country. It is one thing to tax the recent arrival of recreational marijuana, but taxing the sick is unfair and unjust. The proponents of this tax would never consider taxing legal drugs sold at the pharmacy, like the painkillers or opiates that cause deaths and despair to so many. Most medical marijuana users would tell you that using the herb allows them to avoid most, if not all, pills and other pain medications. Taxing a medicine that helps people is just not smart policy. Now that adults in Oregon can grow 4 plants for free in their backyard, it makes the taxing scheme even more absurd. The grandfathering scheme also reeks of reefer madness. You can't grandfather a tax that never generated a penny in the first place, and Voters were considered restricting such taxes in 2014. These proposals are mean-spirited with discrimination as a core principle. Thankfully, we have councilors who do have principles and can stand up to this madness. We don't need taxes on medicine, and the city should let voters decide the taxes on recreational marijuana. Doug Hewer, Newburgh. Okay, so that was in Newburgh, Oregon. So, anyway, Doug Hewer, I've seen his posts on a couple of emails this time on, and speaks well and makes some great points. And then the last article of today I want to talk about is another Register Guard article that was on May 9th, titled Eugene Restaurant Family Expands into the Marijuana Industry. It's written by Elon Guklich. Jim Jensen paces in a warehouse that once housed a glue factory and later a motorcycle dealership before he and his brother Bob got their hands on it. Jim answers a question from one of their 30 employees. Then he checks on a truck ready to ship his pot products to some of the 180 medical marijuana dispensaries across Oregon that sell them. The Jensens and other new businesses in the area have dubbed their stretch of South Burleson Road the Cannabis Cul-de-sac because of the proliferation of marijuana growing operations there. Known to many in Eugene as the owners of Wild Duck Cafe, the Jensens have expanded their business holdings beyond the restaurant industry into the booming field of marijuana. Already busy producing for medical pot retailers who since last year have been allowed to sell recreational pot, the Jensens are among 84 Lane County businesses applying to grow recreational pot on a commercial scale or make hash extracts. This is the part that I like. The brothers have been growing pot since their teenage years on a 20-acre farm in West Eugene. That's part of the thing that's always kind of irked me. I've been an activist for 20-some years, 20 years of scratching, not getting any money to do anything, just what money we could scratch up to hang on and try to get our job done, to try to get marijuana legalized, not only medically, but overall. And then you got people here that don't contribute, haven't done a thing, and then it becomes legal, and then they line up and got their hands out. So I keep saying, the money changers in the temple, and they ain't leaving. So anyway, you got DanK here. See you next week. Thanks.